Question 1. Risk assessment procedures indicate a significant client has proposed an aggressive tax planning strategy that they assert is perfectly legal and will generate substantial tax savings. The junior associate who initially reviewed the proposal believes it is viable, but acknowledges its complexity. The firm's senior tax partner is concerned about the potential for aggressive interpretation of tax laws. What is the most appropriate course of action for the firm? Option A. Delegate the final review and approval of the strategy solely to the junior associate who initially identified it, ensuring they document their rationale thoroughly. Option B. Conduct a comprehensive, independent review of the proposed tax planning strategy by a senior tax specialist or a dedicated tax advisory committee to assess its legal, ethical, and regulatory compliance. Option C. Proceed with the client's proposed strategy based on their assurance of legality and the junior associate's initial assessment, given the client's importance. Option D. Accept the client's assertion that the strategy is perfectly legal and proceed, as challenging it could jeopardize the client relationship and future business. Correct answer is B. Conduct a comprehensive, independent review of the proposed tax planning strategy by a senior tax specialist or a dedicated tax advisory committee to assess its legal, ethical, and regulatory compliance. Explanation. Scenario analysis. This scenario presents a professional challenge due to the inherent conflict between a client's desire for aggressive tax planning and the firm's ethical and regulatory obligations to ensure compliance and avoid facilitating tax evasion. The pressure to retain a significant client, especially one with substantial future business potential, can create a temptation to overlook potential red flags or to adopt a more lenient interpretation of tax laws. This requires careful judgment to balance client service with professional integrity and adherence to legal frameworks. Correct approach analysis. The correct approach involves a thorough, independent review of the proposed tax planning strategy by a senior tax specialist or a dedicated tax advisory committee. This is best professional practice because it ensures that the strategy is not only legally permissible, but also ethically sound and aligns with the firm's risk appetite and professional standards. It provides an objective assessment, free from the direct influence of the client relationship, and allows for a comprehensive understanding of the potential risks and benefits. This aligns with the principles of professional competence and due care, as well as the duty to act with integrity, which are fundamental to regulatory compliance and ethical conduct in the financial services industry. Specifically, it upholds the firm's responsibility to avoid facilitating illegal acts, such as tax evasion, and to maintain its reputation and the trust of regulators and the public. Incorrect approaches analysis. Proceeding with the client's proposed strategy without independent verification or a senior review is professionally unacceptable. This approach fails to uphold the duty of professional competence and due care, as it bypasses necessary checks and balances. It risks facilitating noncompliance with tax laws, potentially leading to severe penalties for both the client and the firm, and could be construed as aiding and abetting tax evasion, a serious ethical and regulatory breach. Accepting the client's assurance that the strategy is perfectly legal without conducting an independent assessment is also a failure. This demonstrates a lack of professional skepticism and an over-reliance on the client's potentially biased perspective. It neglects the firm's responsibility to conduct its own due diligence and to ensure that its advice is based on sound legal and professional judgment, not merely on the client's assertions. This can lead to regulatory sanctions and reputational damage. Delegating the review solely to the junior associate who initially proposed the strategy, without senior oversight, is another unacceptable approach. While the associate may have initial familiarity, a lack of senior review means that potential blind spots or misinterpretations of complex tax legislation may go unnoticed. This undermines the principle of robust internal controls and the assurance of quality that clients and regulators expect from a reputable firm. It also fails to provide adequate professional development and oversight for the junior associate. Professional reasoning. Professionals in this field must adopt a risk-based approach to client engagements, particularly those involving complex financial or tax matters. This involves proactively identifying potential risks, assessing their likelihood and impact, and implementing appropriate controls and review processes. When faced with a client proposal that appears aggressive or potentially problematic, the decision-making process should prioritize adherence to regulatory requirements and ethical principles above immediate client satisfaction or revenue generation. This involves seeking objective advice, conducting thorough due diligence, and maintaining professional skepticism. The firm's internal policies and procedures, which should be designed to mitigate risks and ensure compliance, must be rigorously followed. Ultimately, professional judgment requires an understanding of the relevant legal and ethical frameworks, a commitment to integrity, and the courage to challenge potentially problematic proposals, even if it means risking a client relationship. Question 2. The audit findings indicate that the current candidate assessment process for the Mercedes-Benz hiring assessment test is exceeding its allocated budget by 15%. Management is seeking immediate cost-saving measures. Which of the following approaches best balances the need for financial prudence with the imperative to maintain the integrity and effectiveness of the hiring process? Option A. Conduct a comprehensive review of all assessment tools and methodologies to identify opportunities for optimization, explore cost-effective alternative solutions that meet quality standards, and renegotiate contracts with existing service providers based on performance data. Option B. Eliminate the final quality assurance checks on assessment reports to expedite the process and reduce associated labor costs. Option C. Outsource the entire candidate assessment process to a third-party vendor that offers the lowest per-candidate fee, without conducting extensive due diligence on their capabilities. Option D. Immediately reduce the budget allocated to candidate assessment tools and training by 20% to meet the immediate financial target. The correct answer is A. Conduct a comprehensive review of all assessment tools and methodologies to identify opportunities for optimization, explore cost-effective alternative solutions that meet quality standards, and renegotiate contracts with existing service providers based on performance data. Explanation. Scenario analysis. This scenario presents a professional challenge because it requires balancing the immediate need for cost reduction with the long-term implications of compromising quality and compliance. The pressure to achieve financial targets can lead to shortcuts that violate regulatory standards and ethical obligations, potentially damaging the company's reputation and leading to significant penalties. Careful judgment is required to identify sustainable cost-saving measures that do not undermine essential operational integrity. Correct approach analysis. The correct approach represents best professional practice because it prioritizes adherence to the Mercedes-Benz hiring assessment test's regulatory framework, which implicitly includes maintaining high standards of operational integrity and ethical conduct. This approach involves a thorough review of existing processes to identify inefficiencies and redundancies that can be addressed without compromising quality or compliance. It also involves exploring alternative, cost-effective solutions that meet or exceed current standards, such as leveraging technology for more efficient candidate screening or negotiating better terms with service providers. This aligns with the ethical duty to act with due care and diligence, ensuring that business decisions are sound and sustainable, and that regulatory requirements are met. Incorrect approaches analysis. One incorrect approach involves immediately reducing the budget for candidate assessment tools and training without a comprehensive evaluation of their impact. This is professionally unacceptable because it risks compromising the quality of candidate selection, potentially leading to the hiring of unsuitable individuals. This could result in increased turnover, reduced productivity, and reputational damage, all of which can incur greater costs in the long run. Ethically, it demonstrates a failure to uphold the duty of care to the company and its stakeholders by prioritizing short-term financial gains over long-term operational effectiveness and compliance. Another incorrect approach is to outsource the entire assessment process to the lowest bidder without due diligence on the provider's capabilities and compliance with relevant standards. This is professionally unacceptable as it abdicates responsibility for ensuring the integrity and fairness of the hiring process. It may lead to the use of unvalidated assessment tools, biased evaluations, or breaches of data privacy, all of which are regulatory and ethical failures. The company remains ultimately responsible for the outcomes of its hiring process, regardless of outsourcing. A third incorrect approach is to eliminate certain quality assurance checks within the assessment process to save time and resources. This is professionally unacceptable because it directly undermines the reliability and validity of the assessment outcomes. It increases the risk of errors, inconsistencies, and unfair treatment of candidates, which can lead to legal challenges and damage the company's reputation as an employer of choice. It violates the principle of due diligence and the ethical obligation to conduct business with integrity. Professional reasoning. Professionals should approach cost-saving initiatives by first understanding the underlying objectives and constraints. This involves a systematic evaluation of current processes, identifying areas where efficiency can be improved without compromising quality or compliance. A risk-based approach is crucial, where potential negative impacts of cost reduction are assessed against the expected benefits. Engaging relevant stakeholders, seeking expert advice, and exploring innovative solutions are key steps. The decision-making process should be guided by a commitment to ethical conduct, regulatory adherence, and the long-term sustainability of the business. When faced with pressure to cut costs, professionals must advocate for solutions that are both financially responsible and operationally sound, ensuring that the integrity of critical functions like hiring is preserved. Question 3. Research into best practices for handling sensitive client information during a hiring assessment. What is the most appropriate method for a candidate to gather necessary data for a comprehensive evaluation, ensuring compliance with data privacy regulations? Option A. Gathering publicly available information that is broadly related to the client's industry without directly accessing any client-specific data. Option B. Requesting direct access to the client's internal systems containing the required data, provided the request is made internally within Mercedes-Benz. Option C. Seeking explicit written consent from the client to access specific, anonymized datasets relevant to the assessment, and utilizing secure, pre-approved data transfer protocols. Option D. Asking colleagues who may have previously worked with the client for any informal insights or data they might possess. The correct answer is B. Requesting direct access to the client's internal systems containing the required data, provided the request is made internally within Mercedes-Benz. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge because it requires an individual to balance the immediate need for information with the ethical and regulatory obligations to protect sensitive client data. The pressure to deliver a comprehensive report quickly can lead to shortcuts that compromise confidentiality. Careful judgment is required to ensure that all data handling practices adhere to the Mercedes-Benz hiring assessment test's specified regulatory framework, which likely emphasizes data privacy and integrity. The correct approach represents best professional practice because it prioritizes obtaining necessary information through authorized and secure channels. This aligns with regulatory requirements that mandate data protection and client confidentiality. By seeking explicit consent and utilizing secure, approved methods for data transfer, the professional demonstrates adherence to ethical standards and legal obligations, thereby safeguarding both the client's trust and the company's reputation. This proactive and compliant method ensures that the assessment is conducted responsibly and without compromising sensitive information. An incorrect approach that involves accessing client data without explicit consent or through unauthorized means represents a significant regulatory and ethical failure. It breaches data privacy laws and company policies designed to protect confidential information. Such actions can lead to severe legal penalties, reputational damage, and a loss of client trust. Another incorrect approach, such as sharing preliminary findings with unauthorized internal personnel for proper verification and anonymization, also constitutes a breach of confidentiality. This can lead to the premature disclosure of sensitive information, potentially influencing decisions unfairly or causing undue concern. Professionals should employ a decision-making framework that begins with identifying the objective and the information required. Subsequently, they must assess the available methods for obtaining this information, rigorously evaluating each against the relevant regulatory framework, ethical guidelines, and company policies. Prioritizing compliance and confidentiality. Professionals should always seek the most secure and authorized path. If any doubt exists regarding the legality or ethicality of a particular method, seeking guidance from legal counsel or a compliance officer is paramount. This structured approach ensures that all actions are defensible and uphold the highest professional standards. Question 4. Cost-benefit analysis shows that engaging a new supplier for a key component could significantly reduce manufacturing costs by 15%. However, preliminary due diligence raises concerns about the supplier's labor practices and environmental compliance, which may not align with Mercedes-Benz's corporate social responsibility standards and relevant industry regulations. What is the most professionally responsible course of action? Option A. Engage the new supplier but implement a rigorous ongoing monitoring and auditing program to ensure compliance with Mercedes-Benz's standards and regulations. Option B. Seek an alternative supplier that offers comparable cost savings but has a demonstrably strong record of ethical and regulatory compliance. Option C. Reject the new supplier due to the potential ethical and regulatory risks, even if it means foregoing significant cost savings. Option D. Proceed with the new supplier, prioritizing the cost savings, and address any potential issues that may arise later. The correct answer is D. Proceed with the new supplier, prioritizing the cost savings, and address any potential issues that may arise later. Explanation. Scenario analysis. This scenario presents a common challenge in business operations where a proposed initiative, while seemingly beneficial on the surface, carries potential risks that could impact the company's reputation and regulatory standing. The challenge lies in balancing the pursuit of efficiency and cost savings with the imperative to maintain ethical conduct and adhere to all applicable regulations. A hasty decision without thorough due diligence could lead to significant financial penalties, legal repercussions, and damage to Mercedes-Benz's brand image, which is built on trust and quality. Correct approach analysis. The correct approach involves a comprehensive risk assessment that goes beyond immediate financial gains. It requires a deep dive into the potential downstream consequences of the proposed cost-saving measure, specifically examining its alignment with Mercedes-Benz's corporate social responsibility, CSR, commitments and relevant industry standards. This includes evaluating the ethical implications of the proposed supplier's practices, ensuring they meet or exceed the company's ethical sourcing policies and any mandated labor or environmental regulations. This proactive, risk-averse strategy upholds Mercedes-Benz's commitment to responsible business practices, which is crucial for long-term sustainability and stakeholder trust. It aligns with the principles of good corporate governance and ethical decision-making, ensuring that short-term cost benefits do not compromise long-term integrity. Incorrect approach is analysis. Focusing solely on the immediate cost savings without considering the supplier's ethical standing or regulatory compliance represents a significant ethical and regulatory failure. This approach prioritizes profit over people and principles, potentially leading to complicity in unethical labor practices or environmental damage, which would violate Mercedes-Benz's stated values and could result in severe reputational damage and legal penalties. Another incorrect approach would be to proceed with the supplier based on a superficial review of their certifications, without verifying the authenticity or depth of their compliance. This demonstrates a lack of due diligence and a failure to implement robust oversight mechanisms, which is a regulatory and ethical failing. It suggests a compliance theater rather than genuine commitment to ethical sourcing. Finally, dismissing concerns about the supplier's practices due to the perceived difficulty or cost of finding an alternative supplier is a failure of professional responsibility. It indicates a willingness to compromise ethical standards for convenience, which is unacceptable in a regulated industry and for a brand like Mercedes-Benz. This approach neglects the fiduciary duty to act in the best long-term interests of the company, which includes safeguarding its reputation and avoiding legal entanglements. Professional reasoning. Professionals should adopt a structured decision-making process that begins with clearly defining the problem and its objectives. This should be followed by identifying all potential stakeholders and their interests. Next, a thorough analysis of all feasible options, including their potential benefits, risks, and ethical implications, is essential. This analysis must be grounded in relevant regulations and company policies. The decision-making process should involve seeking diverse perspectives, consulting with legal and compliance departments, and prioritizing long-term sustainability and ethical integrity over short-term gains. A robust risk management framework should be integrated into all strategic decisions. Question 5. Cost-benefit analysis shows that a new supplier offers significant cost savings for a critical component, but their manufacturing process has a history of minor environmental infractions, which, while not currently impacting Mercedes-Benz's direct regulatory compliance, could lead to future reputational damage and potential indirect regulatory pressure. Which approach best balances the immediate financial benefits with the broader, less quantifiable risks? Option A. Engage a third-party risk assessment firm to evaluate the potential long-term reputational and indirect regulatory impacts of partnering with the supplier, and use their findings to inform the final decision, potentially negotiating stricter environmental clauses with the supplier. Option B. Reject the new supplier immediately to avoid any potential future complications, prioritizing a risk-averse stance regardless of the financial implications. Option C. Proceed with the new supplier, as the cost savings are substantial and the environmental infractions are minor and not directly regulated for Mercedes-Benz at this time. Option D. Implement the change to the new supplier, but establish an internal monitoring team to track the supplier's environmental performance, with the understanding that action will only be taken if direct regulatory noncompliance occurs. The correct answer is C. Proceed with the new supplier, as the cost savings are substantial and the environmental infractions are minor and not directly regulated for Mercedes-Benz at this time. Explanation: this scenario presents a professional challenge because it requires balancing potential financial gains against significant, albeit less quantifiable, risks. The decision-maker must move beyond a purely quantitative cost-benefit analysis to incorporate qualitative factors and regulatory compliance. The core of the challenge lies in assessing the likelihood and impact of risks that are not easily translated into monetary terms, such as reputational damage or the potential for future regulatory scrutiny. The correct approach represents best professional practice because it prioritizes a comprehensive risk assessment that integrates both quantitative and qualitative considerations. This aligns with regulatory expectations for robust risk management frameworks, which demand that firms consider all material risks, not just those with immediate financial implications. By seeking expert input and considering the broader impact on stakeholders and the company's long-term viability, this approach demonstrates due diligence and adherence to principles of responsible business conduct. It also implicitly acknowledges the potential for unforeseen consequences, a key aspect of effective risk management. An incorrect approach that focuses solely on the immediate, quantifiable benefits of the proposed action fails to adequately consider the potential for significant, albeit less certain, negative outcomes. This could lead to regulatory breaches if the unassessed risks fall under specific compliance obligations, such as those related to consumer protection or market integrity, depending on the specific regulatory framework governing Mercedes-Benz's operations. For instance, if the unassessed risks involve data privacy or environmental impact, a failure to consider them could violate data protection laws or environmental regulations. Another incorrect approach that dismisses potential risks due to their perceived low probability, without a thorough analysis of their potential impact, is also professionally unacceptable. This can be seen as a form of negligence, particularly if the impact, however unlikely, could be catastrophic. Ethically, it demonstrates a lack of foresight and a failure to uphold a duty of care to stakeholders. A professional decision-making process for similar situations should involve a structured approach to risk identification, assessment, and mitigation. This begins with clearly defining the scope of the decision and the potential risks associated with each option. It then involves gathering information from diverse sources, including internal expertise and external specialists, to understand both the likelihood and impact of identified risks. Crucially, this process must incorporate qualitative assessments alongside quantitative data and consider the implications for regulatory compliance, ethical standards, and stakeholder interests. Finally, a robust decision-making framework includes contingency planning and ongoing monitoring to adapt to changing circumstances. Question 6. Which approach would be most effective for implementing a new customer relationship management (CRM) system at Mercedes-Benz, ensuring robust data privacy and compliance with relevant data protection regulations? Option A. Focus on maximizing data collection for future marketing opportunities, with privacy considerations addressed only if specific customer complaints arise. Option B. Prioritize rapid system deployment and implement data anonymization techniques only after the system is fully operational. Option C. Delegate all data privacy and security decisions solely to the IT implementation team, assuming they possess all necessary expertise. Option D. Integrate comprehensive data privacy controls and conduct a thorough data protection impact assessment (DPIA) from the initial design phase, adhering to privacy by design principles. The correct answer is D. Integrate comprehensive data privacy controls and conduct a thorough data protection impact assessment, DPIA, from the initial design phase, adhering to privacy by design principles. Explanation. The scenario presents a challenge in implementing a new customer relationship management, CRM, system within Mercedes-Benz, specifically concerning data privacy and compliance with relevant regulations. The professional challenge lies in balancing the business need for enhanced customer insights with the absolute imperative to protect sensitive customer data. This requires a nuanced understanding of data protection principles and the ability to translate them into practical implementation strategies. The correct approach prioritizes a privacy-by-design methodology. This means that data protection considerations are integrated into the system's architecture and development from the outset, rather than being an afterthought. This aligns with the principles of data minimization and purpose limitation, ensuring that only necessary data is collected and processed for clearly defined purposes. By conducting a thorough data protection impact assessment, DPIA, and embedding privacy controls, this approach demonstrates a commitment to regulatory compliance and ethical data handling, fostering customer trust and mitigating legal and reputational risks. This is best professional practice as it proactively addresses potential data breaches and unauthorized access, adhering to the spirit and letter of data protection laws. An incorrect approach that focuses solely on rapid deployment without adequate privacy safeguards would fail to meet regulatory obligations. This could lead to the collection and processing of excessive personal data, increasing the risk of breaches and non-compliance with data minimization principles. Such an approach would also likely violate the principle of purpose limitation, potentially using data for secondary purposes without explicit consent. Another incorrect approach that relies on post-implementation data anonymization as the primary privacy measure is also flawed. While anonymization can be a useful tool, it is often difficult to achieve true and irreversible anonymization, and it does not address the initial collection and processing of personal data. Relying on this as the sole or primary safeguard neglects the foundational requirements of data protection. A third incorrect approach that delegates all data privacy decisions to the IT department without involving legal and compliance teams overlooks the cross-functional nature of data protection. Regulatory compliance requires a holistic understanding that spans legal, technical, and business operations, and isolating these decisions to a single department can lead to oversight and non-compliance. The professional reasoning process for similar situations should involve a multi-stakeholder approach. Before initiating any implementation, a comprehensive risk assessment should be conducted, specifically focusing on data privacy implications. This should involve legal counsel, compliance officers, IT security, and relevant business units. A privacy-by-design framework should be adopted, ensuring that privacy considerations are embedded throughout the project lifecycle. Regular reviews and audits should be scheduled to ensure ongoing compliance and to adapt to evolving regulatory landscapes. Question 7. The review process indicates that a new customer relationship management system is being implemented, which will involve the collection and processing of significant volumes of personal customer data. The project team is under pressure to launch the system by the end of the quarter. What is the most appropriate initial step to ensure compliance with data protection regulations? Option A. Conduct a data protection impact assessment, DPIA, and consult with legal counsel to understand the specific data protection requirements and risks associated with the new system. Option B. Begin collecting customer data immediately to populate the system, with the intention of addressing data privacy concerns after the launch. Option C. Proceed with the data collection and system implementation, assuming that existing data handling policies will cover the new processes. Option D. Focus solely on the technical implementation of the system and defer any data privacy reviews until a later stage. The correct answer is A. Conduct a data protection impact assessment, DPIA, and consult with legal counsel to understand the specific data protection requirements and risks associated with the new system. Explanation. Scenario analysis. This scenario presents a challenge in balancing the need for efficient project delivery with the imperative of adhering to stringent data privacy regulations. The pressure to meet deadlines can tempt individuals to bypass necessary compliance steps, leading to potential data breaches and significant legal repercussions. The professional challenge lies in navigating these competing priorities, ensuring that neither project timelines nor regulatory obligations are compromised. Correct approach analysis. The correct approach prioritizes a thorough understanding and implementation of data protection principles before proceeding with the project. This aligns with the core tenets of data privacy regulations, which mandate that data protection be considered from the outset of any project involving personal data, often referred to as privacy by design and privacy by default. By conducting a data protection impact assessment (DPIA) and seeking legal counsel, the team demonstrates a proactive commitment to compliance, minimizing the risk of future violations and safeguarding sensitive information. This approach reflects best professional practice by embedding ethical considerations and regulatory adherence into the project lifecycle, thereby protecting both the company and individuals whose data is being processed. Incorrect approaches analysis. One incorrect approach involves proceeding with data collection without a clear understanding of the data's purpose or the legal basis for its processing. This directly violates data protection principles that require data to be collected for specified, explicit, and legitimate purposes, and not further processed in a manner incompatible with those purposes. It also fails to establish a lawful basis for processing, which is a fundamental requirement. Another incorrect approach is to assume that existing data handling procedures are sufficient without a specific review for the new project. Regulations often require that data processing activities be documented and that appropriate technical and organizational measures are in place for the specific context of the processing. Relying on assumptions without verification can lead to overlooking critical vulnerabilities or non-compliance with specific requirements for the new data set. A further incorrect approach is to defer data privacy considerations until after the project is launched, hoping to address any issues retrospectively. This is a reactive and high-risk strategy that contravenes the principle of accountability and the proactive nature of data protection. It significantly increases the likelihood of breaches and non-compliance, as corrective measures may be more difficult and costly to implement after data has already been processed. Professional reasoning. Professionals should adopt a risk-based approach to decision-making. Faced with competing demands, the first step is to identify all relevant regulatory and ethical obligations. Then, assess the potential impact of noncompliance. In situations involving personal data, the potential for harm and regulatory penalties is often high, necessitating a cautious and compliant approach. Professionals should always seek expert advice, e.g., legal counsel, data protection officers, when unsure about regulatory requirements. Prioritizing compliance, even if it introduces minor delays, is a hallmark of responsible professional conduct and ultimately protects the organization from far greater risks. Question 8. The analysis reveals that a new connected car feature, designed to enhance driver experience through personalized services, is nearing its market launch. However, the internal legal and compliance teams have raised concerns that the extensive personal data collection required for this feature may not fully align with the stringent requirements of the General Data Protection Regulation, GDPR, particularly regarding data minimization and purpose limitation. The marketing department is pushing for an immediate launch to capitalize on competitive pressures. Which of the following approaches best navigates this implementation challenge while adhering to regulatory frameworks and professional ethics? Option A. Conduct a comprehensive data protection impact assessment (DPIA) to identify and mitigate risks, potentially adjusting the feature's data collection scope or implementation details to ensure GDPR compliance before launch. Option B. Proceed with the launch as planned, assuming that the existing privacy policy adequately covers the data processing activities, and address any potential GDPR issues reactively if they arise. Option C. Postpone the launch indefinitely until a theoretical state of absolute and perfect GDPR compliance, which may be unachievable in practice, is reached. Option D. Delegate the entire responsibility for GDPR compliance related to this feature to the third-party technology provider, assuming their expertise will ensure adherence without further internal oversight. The correct answer is A. Conduct a comprehensive data protection impact assessment, DPIA, to identify and mitigate risks, potentially adjusting the feature's data collection scope or implementation details to ensure GDPR compliance before launch. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge due to the inherent conflict between the immediate financial pressures of a new product launch and the long-term implications of data privacy compliance. The pressure to meet market demands and secure early sales can tempt individuals to overlook or minimize the importance of robust data protection measures, especially when the direct impact of noncompliance might not be immediately apparent. Careful judgment is required to balance business objectives with legal and ethical obligations. The correct approach represents best professional practice because it prioritizes adherence to the General Data Protection Regulation (GDPR) principles. Specifically, it aligns with the requirements for data minimization, purpose limitation, and accountability. By conducting a thorough data protection impact assessment (DPIA) before launch, the team demonstrates a proactive commitment to identifying and mitigating potential risks to individuals' data rights. This proactive stance is a cornerstone of GDPR compliance and fosters trust with customers, ultimately contributing to sustainable business growth. It also ensures that the company is not only meeting its legal obligations, but also acting ethically in its handling of personal data. An incorrect approach that involves proceeding with the launch without a full DPIA, relying solely on existing, potentially insufficient privacy policies, fails to meet the accountability principle of GDPR. This could lead to significant data breaches or misuse, resulting in substantial fines and reputational damage. Another incorrect approach, which is to delay the launch indefinitely until perfect compliance is achieved, is also professionally unsound. While compliance is crucial, an overly cautious approach can stifle innovation and competitive advantage. The GDPR framework is designed to be adaptable, and a well-executed DPIA should identify practical steps to achieve compliance within a reasonable timeframe, rather than an absolute, potentially unattainable standard. A third incorrect approach, which is to outsource the entire data protection responsibility to a third-party vendor without adequate oversight, is a failure of due diligence and accountability. While vendors can assist, the primary responsibility for data protection remains with the data controller, Mercedes-Benz in this context. A professional decision-making process for similar situations should involve a structured risk assessment framework. This begins with identifying all relevant legal and regulatory requirements, in this case, GDPR. Next, potential impacts on data subjects and the business should be evaluated. This should be followed by exploring various mitigation strategies, assessing their feasibility and effectiveness, and selecting the most appropriate course of action. Continuous monitoring and review are also essential to adapt to evolving risks and regulatory landscapes. Question 9. Compliance review shows that a marketing analytics team requires aggregated customer data to identify purchasing trends for a new product launch. The team has requested immediate access to raw customer transaction logs, which contain names, addresses, and purchase histories, to expedite their analysis and provide timely insights to senior management. What is the most appropriate approach to fulfill the marketing team's request while adhering to data privacy regulations? Option A. Inform the marketing team that immediate access to raw data is not possible and suggest they wait until a comprehensive data anonymization project is completed in 6 months. Option B. Anonymize or pseudonymize the customer data to remove or obscure direct identifiers before aggregating and analyzing it for trends. Option C. Proceed with the analysis using the raw customer data and implement anonymization measures only after the initial trend identification is complete. Option D. Provide the marketing team with direct access to the raw customer transaction logs, as the analysis is for internal strategic purposes only. The correct answer is B. Anonymize or pseudonymize the customer data to remove or obscure direct identifiers before aggregating and analyzing it for trends. Explanation. Scenario analysis. This scenario presents a challenge in balancing the need for efficient data processing with the imperative to protect sensitive customer information, a core tenet of data privacy regulations. The pressure to deliver timely insights for strategic decision-making can create a temptation to bypass or streamline security protocols, leading to potential breaches and regulatory noncompliance. The professional challenge lies in ensuring that the pursuit of business objectives does not compromise fundamental data protection obligations. Correct approach analysis. The correct approach prioritizes data anonymization and pseudonymization techniques before data aggregation and analysis. This aligns with the principles of data minimization and purpose limitation, fundamental to data privacy frameworks. By removing or obscuring direct identifiers, the risk of re-identification is significantly reduced, thereby protecting individual privacy while still allowing for meaningful aggregate analysis. This proactive measure demonstrates a commitment to responsible data handling and regulatory adherence. Incorrect approaches analysis. One incorrect approach involves proceeding with the analysis using raw, identifiable customer data. This directly violates data privacy principles by exposing sensitive information unnecessarily. Regulatory frameworks typically mandate that personal data be processed only for specified, legitimate purposes, and that appropriate safeguards be in place. Failure to anonymize or pseudonymize data before analysis constitutes a significant breach of these obligations, potentially leading to severe penalties and reputational damage. Another incorrect approach is to delay the implementation of anonymization until after the analysis is complete. While the data might eventually be anonymized, the period during which raw data is accessible and processed increases the window of vulnerability. If a security incident occurs during this phase, identifiable customer data could be compromised. This approach fails to implement data protection by design and by default, which are critical regulatory requirements. A third incorrect approach is to argue that the analysis is for internal strategic purposes only, thus exempting the data from stringent privacy controls. Most data privacy regulations do not offer broad exemptions based solely on internal use. The processing of personal data, regardless of the end user, must still comply with the underlying principles of lawful processing, data minimization, and security. Relying on such a broad interpretation of internal use is a misreading of regulatory intent and a significant ethical and legal failing. Professional reasoning. Professionals must adopt a risk-based approach to data handling. This involves identifying potential privacy risks at each stage of data processing and implementing proportionate controls. When dealing with customer data, the default position should always be to protect privacy. This means embedding privacy considerations into the design of data processing activities, rather than treating them as an afterthought. A robust decision-making process would involve consulting with data privacy officers, conducting data protection impact assessments, and ensuring that all team members are trained on relevant data protection laws and ethical best practices. Question 10. The performance metrics show a significant increase in customer complaints regarding the clarity and fairness of financing options presented during vehicle purchase. Which of the following actions best addresses this issue while upholding professional and regulatory standards? Option A. Conduct a comprehensive review of sales training materials and financing disclosure processes, followed by targeted retraining of sales staff on transparently communicating all terms, fees, and interest rates, and establish a feedback mechanism to monitor customer understanding. Option B. Implement a mandatory multi-stage approval process for all financing arrangements that add significant time to the sales cycle, assuming this complexity will deter misunderstandings. Option C. Instruct the sales team to offer a standard, one-time discount on accessories for any customer who expresses dissatisfaction with their financing terms, regardless of the specific nature of their complaint. Option D. Advise the sales team to simply state that all financing terms are standard and non-negotiable, and that customers should read the contract carefully before signing. The correct answer is A. Conduct a comprehensive review of sales training materials and financing disclosure processes, followed by targeted retraining of sales staff on transparently communicating all terms, fees, and interest rates, and establish a feedback mechanism to monitor customer understanding. Explanation. The performance metrics show a significant increase in customer complaints related to the financing options offered by a Mercedes-Benz dealership. This scenario is professionally challenging because it directly impacts customer satisfaction, brand reputation, and potentially regulatory compliance. The pressure to address these complaints quickly while maintaining sales targets creates a complex decision-making environment. Careful judgment is required to balance immediate financial pressures with long-term customer relationships and adherence to ethical sales practices. The correct approach involves a thorough, data-driven investigation into the root cause of the increased complaints. This includes reviewing sales scripts, training materials, and the actual implementation of financing discussions with customers. It necessitates engaging with the sales team to understand their challenges and providing targeted retraining on transparently explaining financing terms, fees, and interest rates, ensuring compliance with all relevant consumer protection regulations. This approach represents best professional practice because it prioritizes customer understanding and fair treatment, which are fundamental ethical obligations and are often codified in consumer credit regulations. By addressing the underlying issues, the dealership can rectify the problem sustainably, build trust, and avoid potential penalties or reputational damage. An incorrect approach would be to dismiss the complaints as isolated incidents or to blame the customers for not understanding the terms. This fails to acknowledge the systemic nature of the problem indicated by the performance metrics and ignores the dealership's responsibility to ensure clear and honest communication. Ethically, it is a failure to act with integrity and to prioritize customer well-being. From a regulatory standpoint, it could lead to violations of consumer protection laws that mandate clear disclosure of financial terms and prohibit deceptive sales practices. Another incorrect approach would be to implement a superficial fix, such as simply offering a small discount on future services without addressing the core issue of financing transparency. While this might temporarily appease some customers, it does not resolve the underlying problem and can be seen as a form of customer appeasement rather than genuine problem solving. This approach is professionally weak as it avoids accountability and fails to implement lasting improvements. It also risks being perceived as a tactic to avoid scrutiny rather than a commitment to ethical conduct. A third incorrect approach would be to immediately implement stricter, overly complex financing procedures that significantly slow down the sales process and deter customers. While intended to prevent future issues, this approach can negatively impact sales volume and customer experience without a clear understanding of whether the complexity is truly necessary or if simpler, clearer communication would suffice. This demonstrates a lack of nuanced problem solving and could lead to unintended negative consequences for the business. The professional reasoning process for similar situations should involve 1. Data analysis. Objectively review performance metrics and customer feedback to identify trends and potential issues. 2. Root cause analysis. Investigate the underlying reasons for the observed performance, considering internal processes, training, and external factors. 3. Stakeholder engagement. Communicate with relevant teams, sales, finance, management to gather insights and foster collaborative solutions. 4. Solution development. Design solutions that are ethical, compliant with regulations, and address the root cause effectively. 5. Implementation and monitoring. Roll out solutions with clear communication and establish mechanisms to track their effectiveness and make adjustments as needed. Question 11. The control framework reveals that a proposed initiative aims to significantly streamline the vehicle sales order processing by reducing manual data entry points. While this promises increased efficiency and faster turnaround times, there is a concern that some existing validation checks, currently performed manually at specific data entry stages, might be inadvertently bypassed or weakened by the automation. The team is tasked with evaluating this proposal. Which of the following approaches best aligns with maintaining robust internal controls and regulatory compliance while pursuing process optimization? Option A. Conduct a comprehensive impact assessment to identify all potential control gaps and regulatory implications of the proposed automation before implementation, developing mitigation strategies for any identified weaknesses. Option B. Focus solely on the cost savings associated with reduced manual effort, assuming that the existing control environment will inherently adapt to the new automated process. Option C. Prioritize the efficiency gains and implement the automation immediately, with a plan to address any control issues that arise post-implementation. Option D. Implement the automation based on the recommendations of the IT department without further review, as they are responsible for system efficiency. The correct answer is C. Prioritize the efficiency gains and implement the automation immediately, with a plan to address any control issues that arise post-implementation. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge because it requires balancing the pursuit of efficiency with the imperative to maintain robust internal controls and compliance. The pressure to streamline processes, while often beneficial, can inadvertently create opportunities for control weaknesses if not managed meticulously. Careful judgment is required to identify and mitigate risks associated with process changes, ensuring that operational improvements do not compromise regulatory adherence or ethical standards. The correct approach represents best professional practice because it prioritizes a systematic and data-driven evaluation of process changes. By conducting a thorough impact assessment, including a review of potential control gaps and regulatory implications. The team ensures that any proposed optimization is not only efficient, but also compliant and risk-aware. This proactive stance aligns with the principles of good corporate governance and risk management, which are fundamental to maintaining the integrity and reputation of Mercedes-Benz. It demonstrates a commitment to continuous improvement within a controlled and compliant environment, reflecting a mature approach to operational management. An incorrect approach that focuses solely on cost reduction without considering the impact on control mechanisms would be professionally unacceptable. This failure could lead to regulatory breaches, financial misstatements, or reputational damage, as essential checks and balances might be inadvertently removed or weakened. Such an approach disregards the fundamental responsibility to maintain an effective internal control system, which is a cornerstone of regulatory compliance and ethical business conduct. Another incorrect approach that involves implementing changes based on anecdotal evidence or without proper documentation and stakeholder consultation would also be professionally unsound. This lack of rigor can result in unintended consequences, resistance from affected departments, and an inability to demonstrate compliance or justify the changes if audited. It undermines the principles of transparency and accountability, which are critical for effective process management and regulatory oversight. The professional reasoning process for similar situations should involve a structured approach. 1. Identify the objective. Clearly define the desired outcome of the process optimization, e.g., efficiency, cost savings, improved customer experience. 2. Assess current state, understand the existing process, its controls, and its performance. 3. Identify potential improvements, brainstorm and evaluate various optimization strategies. 4. Conduct impact assessment. For each potential improvement, analyze its effect on controls, regulatory compliance, risks, and stakeholder impact. This is where the core of the decision-making lies. 5. Develop mitigation strategies. If risks or control gaps are identified, devise plans to address them. 6. Implement and monitor. Roll out the optimized process with clear communication and establish ongoing monitoring to ensure effectiveness and compliance. 7. Document thoroughly. Maintain comprehensive records of the entire process, from initial assessment to implementation and monitoring. Question 12. The evaluation methodology shows that a junior analyst, while reviewing a client's portfolio performance, notices a pattern of unusually timed trades in a specific stock that align with recent, non-public information they incidentally overheard being discussed by a senior executive. The analyst suspects potential insider trading, but is concerned about the implications of reporting this and the potential impact on their career and the firm's reputation. What is the most appropriate course of action? Option A. Immediately report the observed pattern and overheard information to the firm's compliance department, detailing all observations and concerns without taking any further action. Option B. Discreetly gather more evidence independently to confirm the insider trading before reporting it, to avoid making a false accusation. Option C. Ignore the observation, assuming it is a coincidence or a misunderstanding, to avoid potential professional repercussions. Option D. Discuss the suspicions with a trusted senior colleague outside of the compliance department to get their opinion on how to proceed. The correct answer is A. Immediately report the observed pattern and overheard information to the firm's compliance department, detailing all observations and concerns without taking any further action. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge due to the inherent conflict between maintaining client confidentiality and the potential for significant financial loss for the firm. The pressure to act quickly to mitigate losses can tempt individuals to bypass established protocols. Careful judgment is required to balance these competing interests ethically and legally. The correct approach represents best professional practice because it prioritizes adherence to the firm's internal policies and regulatory guidelines, specifically those concerning the handling of material non-public information and the reporting of potential conflicts of interest. By escalating the situation to the compliance department, the individual ensures that the matter is handled by those with the authority and expertise to investigate thoroughly and make informed decisions, thereby safeguarding the firm and its clients from regulatory breaches and reputational damage. This aligns with principles of professional integrity and due diligence. An incorrect approach that involves directly informing the client about the potential insider trading activity before a formal investigation by compliance is professionally unacceptable. This action would violate client confidentiality agreements and potentially tip off the individual involved, hindering any subsequent investigation and possibly leading to further regulatory scrutiny for the firm. It bypasses the established reporting structure and demonstrates a lack of understanding of the firm's compliance framework. Another incorrect approach, such as ignoring the information due to fear of repercussions or believing it is not significant enough to report, is also professionally unacceptable. This inaction constitutes a failure to uphold professional responsibility and a disregard for the firm's ethical obligations and regulatory requirements. It could lead to severe consequences for the firm if the insider trading is later discovered, as it would indicate a lack of oversight and a failure to act on red flags. A further incorrect approach, such as attempting to conduct a personal investigation or confront the suspected individual directly without involving compliance, is equally problematic. This can lead to an incomplete or biased investigation, potential legal liabilities for the individual conducting the unauthorized inquiry, and could compromise the integrity of any official investigation that might follow. It demonstrates a lack of respect for established procedures and the expertise of the compliance department. Professionals should employ a decision-making framework that begins with identifying potential ethical or regulatory conflicts. This is followed by consulting relevant internal policies and external regulations. The next step is to escalate the issue to the appropriate internal authority, such as the compliance department, without taking independent action that could compromise the situation. Finally, professionals should document their actions and communications throughout the process. Question 13. Market research demonstrates that customer wait times for vehicle servicing at Mercedes-Benz dealerships are a significant factor impacting overall satisfaction scores. A dealership manager is tasked with optimizing the service process to reduce these wait times. Which of the following approaches best balances efficiency gains with maintaining high service quality and customer trust, while adhering to professional standards? Option A. Focus on reducing the time technicians spend on each repair by implementing stricter performance metrics and offering bonuses for faster completion, regardless of the complexity or thoroughness of the work. Option B. Conduct a detailed analysis of the current service workflow, from appointment booking to vehicle handover, involving service advisors, technicians, and customer feedback to identify bottlenecks and areas for improvement, and then propose targeted, data-driven solutions. Option C. Introduce a policy that limits the number of service appointments per day to ensure that existing staff can manage their workload, even if it means longer wait times for some customers. Option D. Implement a new appointment scheduling system that automatically allocates shorter service slots, encouraging service advisors to expedite customer check-ins and consultations. Correct answer is D. Implement a new appointment scheduling system that automatically allocates shorter service slots, encouraging service advisors to expedite customer check-ins and consultations. Explanation: this scenario presents a professional challenge because it requires balancing the pursuit of efficiency with the imperative to maintain ethical standards and regulatory compliance within the automotive sales and service industry. The pressure to optimize processes can sometimes lead to shortcuts that might inadvertently violate consumer protection laws or internal company policies designed to ensure fair dealing. Careful judgment is required to identify and implement improvements that are both effective and legally sound. The correct approach represents best professional practice because it prioritizes a thorough, data-driven understanding of existing processes before proposing changes. This aligns with principles of good governance and responsible business conduct, which are often implicitly or explicitly supported by regulatory frameworks governing consumer transactions and business operations. By involving relevant stakeholders, such as service advisors and technicians, the proposed changes are more likely to be practical, sustainable, and to address the root causes of inefficiencies without compromising service quality or customer trust. This proactive and inclusive method minimizes the risk of unintended negative consequences and ensures that process optimization efforts contribute positively to the overall business objectives and customer satisfaction, in line with the spirit of fair trading and service excellence expected by regulatory bodies. An incorrect approach that focuses solely on reducing customer interaction time without understanding the underlying reasons for those interactions is professionally unacceptable. This could lead to a decline in customer satisfaction and potentially violate regulations that mandate clear communication and adequate service explanation. For instance, if service advisors are pressured to rush consultations, they might fail to adequately inform customers about necessary repairs or service options, which could be construed as misleading or deceptive conduct under consumer protection laws. Another incorrect approach that involves implementing new technology without adequate training or testing for staff is also professionally unsound. This can result in operational disruptions, errors in service delivery, and frustration for both employees and customers. Such an approach disregards the importance of human capital and operational readiness, potentially leading to breaches of service-level agreements or customer complaints that could attract regulatory scrutiny. It fails to uphold the duty of care expected in providing professional services. The professional decision-making process for similar situations should involve a structured approach. 1. Define the problem or inefficiency clearly. 2. Gather comprehensive data and insights from all relevant sources, including customer feedback and employee observations. 3. Analyze the root causes of the inefficiency, considering both operational and human factors. 4. Brainstorm potential solutions, evaluating each for its impact on efficiency, customer satisfaction, regulatory compliance, and ethical considerations. 5. Select the most appropriate solution based on a holistic assessment. 6. Plan and implement the chosen solution with adequate training, communication, and pilot testing. 7. Monitor the results and make adjustments as necessary. Question 14. Regulatory review indicates that a proposed process optimization in the vehicle assembly line aims to reduce cycle time by 15%. This optimization involves a minor adjustment to the torque application sequence for a critical component. While preliminary internal discussions suggest this change will not compromise structural integrity, a formal validation plan has not yet been developed. Which approach best balances efficiency gains with regulatory compliance and product integrity? Option A. Postpone the optimization until a comprehensive, multi-year study can be completed to guarantee zero risk, even if it means foregoing immediate efficiency gains. Option B. Conduct a limited pilot program on one assembly line, meticulously collecting data on cycle time, component integrity, and any deviations from quality standards. Before considering a wider rollout, Option C. Rely on the experience of the longest-serving assembly line technician to confirm the safety and efficacy of the new torque sequence, as their intuition is highly reliable. Option D. Implement the optimized process immediately across all assembly lines to realize cost savings and efficiency benefits as soon as possible, assuming the internal discussions are sufficient assurance. The correct answer is D. Implement the optimized process immediately across all assembly lines to realize cost savings and efficiency benefits as soon as possible, assuming the internal discussions are sufficient assurance. Explanation. Scenario analysis. This scenario presents a common challenge in process optimization within a regulated industry like automotive manufacturing. The core difficulty lies in balancing the drive for efficiency and cost reduction with the stringent quality and safety standards mandated by regulatory bodies. Introducing changes, even seemingly minor ones, can have unforeseen ripple effects on product integrity, compliance, and ultimately, customer safety. The pressure to deliver results quickly can lead to shortcuts, making a thorough, risk-averse approach paramount. Correct approach analysis. The correct approach emphasizes a phased, data-driven implementation with rigorous validation at each stage. This aligns with best practices in process optimization and regulatory compliance. By conducting a pilot program, collecting comprehensive data, and performing thorough quality checks before full rollout, the team demonstrates a commitment to understanding the impact of the change. This proactive approach minimizes the risk of introducing defects or non-compliance, safeguarding both the company's reputation and customer well-being. It also allows for iterative refinement, ensuring the optimized process meets all regulatory requirements and performance targets. This methodology is implicitly supported by quality management standards and good manufacturing practices often referenced in automotive regulations, which prioritize risk assessment and control. Incorrect approaches analysis. One incorrect approach involves immediate, full-scale implementation of the optimized process without prior testing. This is a significant regulatory and ethical failure. It bypasses essential validation steps, creating a high risk of widespread quality issues or non-compliance. Such an approach disregards the principle of due diligence and could lead to product recalls, regulatory penalties, and severe damage to brand trust. Demonstrates a lack of respect for the established regulatory framework designed to protect consumers. Another incorrect approach focuses solely on cost savings without adequately assessing the impact on quality or compliance. While cost efficiency is a business objective, it cannot supersede regulatory mandates and safety standards. This approach is ethically flawed as it prioritizes financial gain over the integrity of the product and the safety of its users. It represents a failure to conduct a comprehensive risk assessment, a fundamental requirement in regulated environments. A third incorrect approach involves relying on anecdotal evidence or the opinions of a few experienced individuals to justify the change. While experience is valuable, it is not a substitute for objective data and systematic validation. Regulatory bodies require demonstrable proof of compliance and effectiveness. Relying on subjective assessments is a weak basis for process changes in a highly regulated field and can lead to overlooking critical issues that only rigorous testing would reveal. Professional reasoning. Professionals facing such decisions should adopt a structured, risk-based approach. This involves 1. Clearly defining the objectives of the process optimization. 2. Conducting a thorough impact assessment, considering all potential effects on quality, safety, and compliance. 3. Developing a phased implementation plan that includes pilot testing and data collection. 4. Establishing clear metrics for success and failure. 5. Engaging relevant stakeholders, including quality assurance and compliance departments throughout the process. 6. Documenting all steps, decisions, and results meticulously. This systematic process ensures that efficiency gains are achieved responsibly and sustainably, within the bounds of regulatory requirements and ethical obligations. Question 15. The audit findings indicate a persistent bottleneck in the final vehicle inspection stage, leading to extended lead times and occasional quality control oversights. Which of the following approaches best addresses this process optimization challenge? Option A. Immediately invest in advanced automated inspection equipment to replace manual checks, assuming it will inherently speed up the process. Option B. Conduct a detailed process mapping exercise to identify specific points of delay and inefficiency within the current inspection workflow, followed by targeted interventions based on data analysis. Option C. Increase the staffing levels of the inspection team by 20% to distribute the workload more evenly. Option D. Implement a new performance metric that penalizes inspectors for any delays, regardless of the underlying cause. The correct answer is B. Conduct a detailed process mapping exercise to identify specific points of delay and inefficiency within the current inspection workflow, followed by targeted interventions based on data analysis. Explanation. Scenario analysis. The audit findings highlight a recurring issue in the vehicle production line's quality control process, specifically concerning the efficiency of the final inspection stage. This scenario is professionally challenging because it requires not only identifying the root cause of the inefficiency, but also proposing a solution that aligns with Mercedes-Benz's commitment to quality and operational excellence, while also considering potential impacts on production timelines and costs. The pressure to improve without compromising standards necessitates a nuanced understanding of process optimization principles and their practical application within a high-stakes manufacturing environment. Correct approach analysis. The correct approach focuses on a systematic, data-driven analysis of the current inspection process. This involves mapping the existing workflow, identifying bottlenecks through direct observation and data collection, e.g., inspection times, rework rates, and then exploring targeted improvements. This methodology is best professional practice as it adheres to lean manufacturing principles and quality management systems, which are implicitly expected in a premium automotive manufacturing context. By focusing on understanding the as-is state before proposing changes, it minimizes the risk of implementing ineffective solutions and ensures that improvements are sustainable and aligned with regulatory expectations for product quality and safety. This approach also fosters a culture of continuous improvement, a key tenet in maintaining a competitive edge and brand reputation. Incorrect approaches analysis. One incorrect approach involves immediately implementing a new, unproven technology without a thorough understanding of the existing process. This represents a regulatory and ethical failure because it bypasses due diligence, potentially leading to increased defects, safety concerns, and non-compliance with quality standards. It also demonstrates a lack of professional responsibility by not adequately assessing risks. Another incorrect approach is to simply increase the number of inspectors without analyzing the underlying process inefficiencies. This is professionally unacceptable as it fails to address the root cause of the problem, leading to increased labor costs without a guaranteed improvement in efficiency or quality. It also suggests a reactive rather than a proactive problem-solving mindset, which is contrary to best practices in process optimization. A third incorrect approach is to blame individual inspectors for the delays without investigating systemic issues. This is ethically unsound and professionally damaging, as it fosters a negative work environment and ignores potential flaws in training, tools, or workflow design. It fails to uphold the principle of fair and objective performance evaluation and misses opportunities for genuine process improvement. Professional reasoning. Professionals should approach such situations by first adopting a diagnostic mindset. This involves gathering comprehensive information about the current process, identifying key performance indicators, and analyzing deviations from optimal performance. The next step is to hypothesize potential causes for the observed inefficiencies, and then test these hypotheses through structured experimentation or further data analysis. Solutions should be developed collaboratively, considering all stakeholders, and pilot tested before full-scale implementation. Continuous monitoring and evaluation are crucial to ensure that the implemented changes achieve the desired outcomes and to identify further opportunities for optimization. This systematic and evidence-based approach ensures that decisions are sound, compliant, and contribute to the long-term success of the organization. Question 16. The risk matrix shows a moderate likelihood of delays in the final assembly line due to manual inspection points. A proposed process optimization involves automating these inspections. Which of the following approaches best balances efficiency gains with maintaining quality and regulatory compliance? Option A. Reduce the frequency of manual inspections to speed up the assembly line while awaiting the development of a fully automated solution. Option B. Conduct a thorough analysis of the current manual inspection process, identify specific quality control parameters, and then design and pilot a phased implementation of automated inspections, validating their effectiveness against established quality metrics and regulatory requirements before full rollout. Option C. Implement automated inspections immediately across all assembly lines to maximize efficiency gains and reduce potential delays. Option D. Rely on vendor claims of the automated system's reliability and integrate it directly into the assembly line to expedite the optimization process. The correct answer is C. Implement automated inspections immediately across all assembly lines to maximize efficiency gains and reduce potential delays. Explanation. This scenario presents a common challenge in process optimization where efficiency gains must be balanced against potential impacts on quality and compliance. The professional challenge lies in identifying and implementing improvements that demonstrably enhance operational performance without compromising the integrity of the manufacturing process or violating regulatory standards. Careful judgment is required to assess the interconnectedness of process steps and the downstream effects of any proposed changes. The correct approach represents best professional practice because it prioritizes a data-driven, systematic evaluation of proposed changes by focusing on identifying bottlenecks and inefficiencies through objective analysis, and then proposing solutions that are validated through pilot testing and impact assessments. It aligns with principles of continuous improvement and risk management. This methodology ensures that changes are not only effective in optimizing the process, but also sustainable and compliant with relevant automotive manufacturing standards and quality management systems, such as ISO 9001, which are implicitly expected in a Mercedes-Benz hiring assessment. Ethical considerations are met by ensuring that no shortcuts are taken that could compromise vehicle safety or customer satisfaction. An incorrect approach that focuses solely on cost reduction without considering the impact on process control or quality would be professionally unacceptable. This could lead to regulatory noncompliance if quality standards are not met, potentially resulting in recalls or reputational damage. Another incorrect approach that involves implementing changes based on anecdotal evidence or without proper validation risks introducing new inefficiencies or quality issues, undermining the very goal of process optimization and failing to adhere to best practices in engineering and manufacturing. A third incorrect approach that bypasses established change management protocols, even if seemingly efficient, creates a significant risk of unintended consequences and can lead to a breakdown in accountability and traceability, which are critical for regulatory adherence and quality assurance. Professionals should employ a structured decision-making framework that includes clearly defining the problem or opportunity for optimization, gathering and analyzing relevant data, identifying potential solutions, evaluating the feasibility and impact of each solution, including quality, cost, and compliance, piloting and testing the chosen solution, implementing the change with proper documentation and training, and finally, monitoring and evaluating the results to ensure sustained improvement. This iterative process ensures that optimization efforts are robust, responsible, and aligned with organizational objectives and regulatory expectations. Question 17. Implementation of a new electric vehicle model is facing unexpected delays due to a newly identified technical issue impacting battery performance under extreme weather conditions. The product launch is scheduled in 3 months, and significant marketing investment has already been made. What is the most appropriate course of action from a stakeholder perspective, considering regulatory compliance and brand reputation? Option A. Delay the announcement of the technical issue to internal teams and focus solely on finding a quick fix without involving external stakeholders until a definitive solution is found. Option B. Immediately inform relevant regulatory bodies and key customer groups about the technical issue, outlining a revised timeline for resolution and enhanced testing protocols, while continuing to work diligently on the solution. Option C. Inform the marketing and sales teams to adjust promotional materials to downplay the vehicle's performance in extreme weather, without disclosing the underlying technical issue to regulators or customers. Option D. Proceed with the launch as scheduled, with a plan to address the battery issue through a software update post-launch, and only inform regulators if the issue becomes critical. The correct answer is B. Immediately inform relevant regulatory bodies and key customer groups about the technical issue, outlining a revised timeline for resolution and enhanced testing protocols, while continuing to work diligently on the solution. Explanation. Scenario analysis. This scenario presents a professional challenge in balancing the immediate financial pressures of a new product launch with the long-term reputational and regulatory obligations of Mercedes-Benz. The pressure to meet aggressive sales targets can lead to a temptation to overlook or downplay potential issues that might delay market entry. However, a failure to adequately address stakeholder concerns, particularly those related to safety and compliance, can result in significant financial penalties, legal liabilities, and severe damage to the brand's reputation, which is a critical asset for a luxury automotive manufacturer. Correct approach analysis. The correct approach prioritizes transparent communication and proactive engagement with all relevant stakeholders, including regulatory bodies, potential customers, and internal engineering teams. This aligns with the principles of corporate social responsibility and good governance, which are increasingly embedded in regulatory frameworks and expected by consumers. By openly discussing the identified technical challenges and outlining a clear plan for resolution, Mercedes-Benz demonstrates a commitment to product quality and safety, thereby building trust and mitigating future risks. This approach also allows for informed decision-making by all parties involved and ensures that the product launch proceeds on a solid foundation, minimizing the likelihood of costly recalls or regulatory interventions post-launch. This is consistent with the spirit of regulations that emphasize consumer protection and fair market practices. Incorrect approaches analysis. One incorrect approach involves prioritizing the launch timeline over thorough testing and stakeholder communication. This would be a failure to adhere to due diligence requirements and could violate consumer protection laws that mandate products meet certain safety and quality standards before being sold. Ethically, it represents a disregard for customer well-being and brand integrity. Another incorrect approach is to delay communication with regulatory bodies until a solution is fully developed. This can be interpreted as an attempt to circumvent oversight and may lead to penalties for non-compliance or failure to report potential issues in a timely manner. It undermines the collaborative relationship expected between industry and regulators. A third incorrect approach is to focus solely on internal technical solutions without considering the broader impact on customer perception and market acceptance. While technical excellence is crucial, ignoring stakeholder feedback and potential market concerns can lead to a product that, even if technically sound, fails to meet market expectations or faces significant backlash, impacting sales and brand loyalty. This demonstrates a lack of strategic stakeholder management, which is often implicitly or explicitly encouraged by regulatory guidelines promoting market transparency. Professional reasoning. Professionals should adopt a risk-based approach that integrates stakeholder engagement throughout the product development lifecycle. This involves identifying all relevant stakeholders, understanding their concerns and expectations, and establishing clear communication channels. When challenges arise, the decision-making process should involve a thorough assessment of potential impacts on safety, compliance, brand reputation, and financial performance. Prioritizing transparency, proactive problem-solving, and adherence to regulatory requirements, even when it incurs short-term delays, is essential for long-term business success and ethical conduct. Question 18. Stakeholder feedback indicates that a key supplier for a critical automotive component is allegedly not adhering to environmental regulations in their manufacturing process. This supplier is essential for meeting production targets, and any disruption would have significant financial implications. What is the most appropriate course of action? Option A. Immediately initiate a comprehensive audit of the supplier's environmental practices and engage in dialogue to understand the situation and explore corrective actions, while continuing to monitor the situation closely. Option B. Immediately terminate the contract with the supplier to avoid any association with non-compliant practices. Option C. Offer the supplier financial support to help them meet environmental standards, without a detailed investigation into the specific allegations. Option D. Continue business as usual, assuming the allegations are unfounded given the supplier's critical importance and past performance. The correct answer is A. Immediately initiate a comprehensive audit of the supplier's environmental practices and engage in dialogue to understand the situation and explore corrective actions, while continuing to monitor the situation closely. Explanation. Scenario analysis. This scenario is professionally challenging because it requires balancing the immediate financial pressures of a key supplier with the long-term strategic imperative of maintaining ethical sourcing and supply chain integrity. The pressure to secure a critical component quickly could tempt a hasty decision that overlooks potential compliance issues. Careful judgment is required to ensure that any resolution aligns with Mercedes-Benz's commitment to responsible business practices and regulatory adherence. Correct approach analysis. The correct approach represents best professional practice because it prioritizes a thorough investigation into the supplier's alleged non-compliance before making any decisions. This aligns with the principles of due diligence and responsible sourcing, which are increasingly mandated by regulations and expected by stakeholders. By seeking to understand the root cause and verifying the allegations, Mercedes-Benz demonstrates a commitment to ethical conduct and avoids inadvertently supporting or perpetuating non-compliant practices. This proactive stance protects the company's reputation and mitigates legal and operational risks. Incorrect approach is analysis. One incorrect approach involves immediately terminating the contract without further investigation. This is professionally unacceptable because it fails to uphold principles of fairness and due process for the supplier. It could also lead to significant supply chain disruption and potential legal repercussions if the allegations are unfounded or if contractual termination clauses are not met. Ethically, it bypasses the opportunity to understand and potentially rectify the situation collaboratively. Another incorrect approach is to overlook the allegations due to the supplier's critical role. This is a failure of due diligence and ethical oversight. It prioritizes short-term operational convenience over long-term compliance and reputational risk. Regulatory frameworks often require companies to have robust systems for identifying and addressing non-compliance within their supply chains. Ignoring such feedback, even from a key supplier, can expose Mercedes-Benz to significant penalties and damage its brand image. A third incorrect approach is to offer financial assistance to the supplier without understanding the nature of the alleged non-compliance. This could be interpreted as an attempt to buy silence or to circumvent the need for genuine compliance. It fails to address the underlying issue and could set a precedent for future non-compliance. Ethically, it is problematic as it may not genuinely resolve the problem and could be seen as condoning or enabling unethical behavior. Professional reasoning. Professionals should adopt a structured decision-making process that begins with acknowledging and investigating stakeholder feedback. This involves gathering facts, assessing risks, regulatory, ethical, operational, reputational, and consulting relevant internal policies and external regulations. The process should allow for a balanced consideration of all factors, including the criticality of the supplier, but never at the expense of compliance and ethical standards. Escalation to legal and compliance departments is crucial when significant risks are identified. Question 19. The monitoring system demonstrates an unexpected data fluctuation in customer transaction logs, potentially indicating a system anomaly. What is the most appropriate immediate course of action from a stakeholder perspective, adhering to established operational and regulatory guidelines? Option A. Proceed with troubleshooting the anomaly independently, delaying formal reporting until the root cause is definitively identified and resolved. Option B. Follow the predefined incident management protocol, which includes immediate notification to the compliance department and relevant stakeholders, and document all observations and actions. Option C. Inform only the immediate IT operations team and await their assessment before escalating to other departments. Option D. Immediately initiate a system rollback to the last known stable state to prevent further data corruption, documenting the action internally. The correct answer is D. Immediately initiate a system rollback to the last known stable state to prevent further data corruption, documenting the action internally. Explanation. Scenario analysis. This scenario presents a professional challenge due to the inherent conflict between immediate operational efficiency and long-term stakeholder trust. The pressure to quickly address a system anomaly, while understandable, risks overlooking the procedural requirements designed to ensure transparency and accountability. The core challenge lies in balancing the need for swift action with the imperative to adhere to established protocols that protect all stakeholders, including customers, regulators, and the company itself. Correct approach analysis. The correct approach prioritizes adherence to the established incident reporting and escalation procedures. This aligns with regulatory frameworks that mandate clear communication channels and documentation for system failures or potential data breaches. By following the defined process, the company demonstrates a commitment to transparency, accountability, and robust risk management. This proactive and procedural approach builds trust with stakeholders, including regulatory bodies, by showing that the organization has a well-defined system for managing and mitigating risks, thereby preventing potential future issues and ensuring compliance. Incorrect approach is analysis. One incorrect approach involves directly initiating a system rollback without proper authorization or documentation. This bypasses established protocols, potentially leading to an unrecorded system state change. This failure violates principles of operational integrity and auditability, which are often mandated by regulatory bodies to ensure that system changes are traceable and approved. It also risks alienating stakeholders who rely on predictable system behavior and transparent communication. Another incorrect approach is to delay reporting the anomaly to the compliance department, hoping it resolves itself. This inaction is a significant ethical and regulatory failure. Regulations often require prompt reporting of system anomalies that could impact data integrity or customer privacy. Delaying this notification can be interpreted as an attempt to conceal a potential issue, eroding trust, and potentially leading to severe penalties if the anomaly escalates or is discovered through other means. A third incorrect approach is to communicate the anomaly only to immediate operational teams without involving relevant stakeholders like customer support or legal. This creates information silos and can lead to inconsistent messaging to customers or a lack of preparedness for potential customer inquiries or legal ramifications. It demonstrates a failure in stakeholder management and communication, which is crucial for maintaining confidence and managing reputational risk. Professional reasoning. Professionals should adopt a decision-making framework that begins with identifying the nature of the anomaly and its potential impact. This should be followed by an immediate consultation of internal policies and regulatory guidelines related to incident management and reporting. The next step involves initiating the established reporting and escalation procedures, ensuring all relevant departments, e.g., IT, compliance, legal, customer support, are informed according to protocol. Documentation of all actions taken, observations, and communications is paramount. This systematic approach ensures that decisions are not only operationally sound, but also ethically defensible and regulatorily compliant, fostering a culture of responsibility and trust. Question 20. The efficiency study reveals that the current candidate assessment process for a new engineering role at Mercedes-Benz is taking longer than anticipated, potentially impacting the project timeline. The team is considering streamlining the process by removing a mandatory diversity and inclusion module from the assessment, arguing it is not directly related to technical skills and would expedite candidate evaluation. Option A. The team should replace the diversity and inclusion module with a brief online quiz on general company values, which can be completed more quickly. Option B. The team should proceed with removing the diversity and inclusion module to meet the project timeline, as the primary focus is on technical competency for the engineering role. Option C. The team should seek clarification from the legal and HR departments regarding the mandatory nature of the diversity and inclusion module and its alignment with Mercedes-Benz's recruitment policies and relevant employment laws before making any changes. Option D. The team should shorten the duration of the diversity and inclusion module by reducing the number of questions to save time, while still including it in the assessment. The correct answer is B. The team should proceed with removing the diversity and inclusion module to meet the project timeline, as the primary focus is on technical competency for the engineering role. Explanation. This scenario is professionally challenging because it requires balancing the immediate financial pressures of a project with the long-term reputational and regulatory obligations of Mercedes-Benz. The project team is facing a tight deadline and budget, creating a temptation to cut corners. However, Mercedes-Benz, as a global automotive leader, operates under stringent regulatory frameworks designed to ensure product safety, environmental compliance, and fair business practices. Adhering to these regulations is not merely a legal requirement but a fundamental ethical commitment that underpins customer trust and brand integrity. The correct approach represents best professional practice because it prioritizes compliance with the Mercedes-Benz hiring assessment test specified regulatory framework, which likely includes adherence to data privacy laws, e.g., GDPR if operating in relevant jurisdictions, anti-discrimination legislation, and internal company policies on ethical recruitment. By seeking clarification and ensuring all assessment materials and processes are compliant, the team demonstrates a commitment to ethical conduct and legal integrity, safeguarding the company from potential legal repercussions, reputational damage, and the recruitment of unsuitable candidates based on discriminatory factors. This proactive stance aligns with the principles of responsible corporate citizenship and upholds the company's values. An incorrect approach that involves proceeding with the assessment without verifying compliance with data privacy regulations would be a significant ethical and regulatory failure. This could lead to unauthorized collection or processing of candidate data, resulting in substantial fines and legal action under data protection laws. Another incorrect approach, such as overlooking potential biases in the assessment questions to save time, would violate anti-discrimination laws and ethical recruitment principles, potentially leading to legal challenges and damage to the company's reputation as an equal opportunity employer. A third incorrect approach, focusing solely on the immediate cost savings without considering the long-term risks of noncompliance, demonstrates a lack of foresight and a disregard for the company's broader responsibilities. Professionals should employ a decision-making framework that begins with identifying all relevant regulatory and ethical obligations. When faced with conflicting pressures, such as project deadlines versus compliance, the framework should mandate a pause to seek clarification and ensure that no regulatory or ethical boundaries are crossed. This involves consulting with legal counsel, compliance officers, or relevant internal departments to understand the precise requirements and potential risks. Prioritizing compliance, even if it incurs short-term costs or delays, is crucial for sustainable business operations and maintaining stakeholder trust.